I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Leavenworth County Commission. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, all three commissioners are present. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I'd like to open up the portion of public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address. Are you up, Mr. Herring? No? Okay. We'll close that portion of the meeting of public comment. We'll start with administrative business. Mark, David, do you have anything today at this time?
Mr. Chairman, good morning, members of the Commission. You had asked me to review a specific SUP permit matter with respect to liability insurance issue. The applicant, excuse me, Commissioner, I apologize, that matter is on your agenda at 9:05.
Okay.
So we don't have any.
Okay. All right. Has commissioners had a chance to look at the minutes?
I have, Mr. Chairman. I've reviewed them. I see no changes necessary. I move approval.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 And the agenda for next week, we had a revised there.
Yeah, there was just one revision. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 We have no OCBs today, correct? Okay. Do we need to wait till 9:05 or? I mean, it is a public hearing we're continuing with.
Continuing public hearing, Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend you wait till 9:05. The applicant will not be present, as he informed me Monday. I don't anticipate any others being present. I can give you, it'll be a very, very short presentation.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any business before the board in the next 3 minutes?
Chairman, I think all commissioners got this memorandum in regard flooding by Rodney Adams.
Yes, sir. There's a BOCC feedback. Believe Public Works has went out, or was, I think they were just out there the other day prior to this letter. And I don't know the details of it, but I'm sure they're going to check into it.
Well, I hope they do, because they really have flooding, and
That must have been after I left because I cleared my emails yesterday.
I'm not sure what could be done, but
No, there's a creek in the backyard.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
they
kind
are
of hard
built on
to
waterways.
do something with a creek in the
Right.
backyard. Is it on
Planning
private
zoning are
property?
both aware of it.
Yes, sir.
They're both,
Right.
Public Works and Planning Zoning are both aware of it. They're both
Right.
looking into it.
I think
Right.
we've had this issue prior years.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we were looking at it at least.
I don't recognize the name, but I recognize the situation.
I know the area.
Thank you.
Actually, they just replaced a big crossroad culvert there that dumps in. I believe that's the creek. Well, nobody from Public Works here. But, like I said, we've had some pretty good rains. I mean,
Oh, yes.
you know, most of our drainage structures are not designed for that many inches of rain in that short a period of time also, but I don't believe it topped the road. I think it just jumped the banks of the creek. But until they go out there and investigate it and look into it and make sure there's nothing blocking the creek or something, I guess we do. But they are on top of it, Commissioner.
So, thank you.
Okay, David, I believe on, well, we got
No, one more minute.
30 seconds.
Oh.
Okay, David, we're good.
Mr. Chairman, this would be reconvening the public hearing portion Special use application DEV 17057. This regards the operation of a very low volume gun repair business. Guns are sold there, as is ammunition. The applicant has twice appeared before you. The applicant had previously also sold, I'm not sure if they maintain, but sold ATVs, no longer does so.
David, might I interrupt one thing? I don't believe it's a gun repair business because I asked that question. I think he just tinkers with, I don't think he repairs them. He just sells something if he can find an antique gun or something like that. I don't mean to disagree with you, but I just want to make that for the record.
It is a very, very low volume business. It has been in business for approximately 15 years, has kept up his permits with the state, has obtained a special use permit through the county. No complaints have been received of this business. He has paid, been assessed a traffic or road impact fee. The issue at hand is that one of the conditions the Planning Commission recommended and brought before you was that the business owner and property owner maintain a $1 million liability insurance policy on the business, naming the county as a co-insured. The applicant has stated to this board, and I've had discussion with him, that he has been unable to find such insurance and that the cost would be prohibitive. Per your direction, and as I stated on Monday, I was able to visit with the county's insurance agent. Obviously, insurance for a gun shop of any size or nature is rather limited as far as the market because of the specialized use, but that there may be a company in the market that would be willing to issue such a policy. And as to the level, the Kansas Tort Claims Act limits your liability in any specific incident to $500,000. The county has been requiring $1 million policy. So quite frankly, you have a couple of options open to you at this time. We can leave, again, table the matter for an additional time, allow the applicant to continue under the existing special use permit for that period of time specified, and either find insurance for $1 million and supply the certificate. You could amend the requirement in his specific instance, because each special use permit is a specific incident, has peculiar characteristics that differentiate it from other special use permits. That's why you go through the Planning Commission public hearing process. Possibly consider amending his requirement for liability insurance to a lesser amount than $1 million, and or whether you want to waive the liability insurance at all. The problem with waiving the liability insurance in this case is, does that, or could that be argued as a precedent in other issues? It would be, because there's a cost to obtaining insurance, and there's a reason you've obtained insurance in the past, is that you wish to protect the citizens of the county against any claim that could come about through a special use permit that you specifically granted. And see, or quite frankly, see where we are within a 30-day period, beat the bushes, find a quote for a policy, and see if the business owner wants to continue to operate under a special use permit under the conditions that are available.
Is there a possibility that we could lower that amount? I think on this instance, for instance, is a $500,000 would deem very possible for him, because it's such a small business. He does such a low volume business. It's more of I think a retirement project, and not really a full-blown business that.
To my knowledge, the applicant does not advertise on TV or radio.
Right.
That is certainly an option that could be looked at, commissioners. And again, I know that you've got an agenda and it moves, but really your options this morning are to close the public hearing and render a decision one way or the other, or to continue and get another period of time and I could convey this message to the applicant. Go out and look at, can he obtain a lesser amount of insurance, or can he obtain the insurance at all? And at that point, it becomes a business decision on his part as to whether to continue as a special use.
this is the first time he's been required to have this insurance out of the 15 years.
I believe so because the prior application did not require it.
You see, this is something new.
It's a bad deal for somebody
Yeah.
that's really not impacting our community.
Commissioners, with that information before you, I hate to say it, I would respectfully suggest that the board continue the matter for a 30-day period, look into it, and at that point, I'll report back to you, and you can finalize the matter at that time.
Didn't he report that he had only sold like 2 guns a year?
Well, other than the prospective sale he discussed with me, I think it's 2 to 3 guns a
I
year.
think he said 2 or 3 boxes of ammunition. I don't even think it was guns. I think it was ammunition.
Yeah, I
No,
think so
it's-
too.
He
He
doesn't
was
run
talking
sales
about
like
buying
Cabela's
these.
does.
Again, Commissioners, I would characterize this as a very low volume business.
Well, like I said, 15 years in business, this is the first time the county's required it, it's almost like he should be grandfathered in.
I kind of agree to that.
Well, Commissioners, again, by tabling it, we could look into the matter further. And I know you have a lot on your plate, you will in 30 days from now, but you have an applicant, and I think he deserves his time before him, we can give it to him.
Okay, so would that be
I
a
agree.
recommendation about $500,000?
Yes,
Or even
that's
$1
what
million?
my recommendation would be.
Well, Commissioners, you could vote to close the public hearing and simply amend the condition the planning commission put on to lower from $1 million to $500,000, and leave it as that. If he's able to apply for find insurance, it's worth his while, and he provides the certificate to planning and zoning, that would more or less close the matter because he has all the other permits and plans. If he's unable to, or chooses not to find that certificate of insurance, it would then need to readdress the issue as to whether or not to issue the special use permit without such insurance.
And you said he pays the traffic impact fee?
Sure, I believe a traffic impact fee, excuse me.
Even though it's on a state highway? This property's on a state highway,
I have not
correct?
re-examined or examined that issue. One of the recommendations is that he pay a traffic impact fee of $88.39.
Is that correct? It's on State Avenue, it's on
Correct,
K-Dot
correct.
Road?
Correct. Traffic impact fees is applicable to all the special use permits.
Okay.
If the gentleman who owns a shop did not sell guns, but simply repaired, would he then need
But he,
his license?
Well, he probably need to submit a new application because I think the application, as Commissioner Holmes points out, indicates that they do.
he
sell.
doesn't, Clyde, I asked the question if he repaired them, and he said he does not repair them. He just basically is staying open to sell a couple boxes of ammunition and maybe a gun or two a year. And I asked him if he repaired them, and he said no, he did not repair them.
I
Well-
believe he stated exactly what your administrator, that he's not sold guns.
Right.
I mean, he had somebody come in, look at one, he sold a couple of boxes of ammunition. I think, exactly what you said is true, Commissioner Holland. It's more
But-
of a
Hobby.
But he's licensed by the state, correct?
Yeah, they have to get all the permits from the state.
And the state doesn't require any insurance, liability insurance for these, or,
I don't believe so.
okay.
Well, if the state grants him a permit and don't charge him any,
Make any stipulation on
Right.
liability insurance?
why should,
I don't know. I agree, Commissioner. I mean, you'd think the state would have stricter
I would think so.
regulations in the county.
Right, I
But-
would think so, but if they don't,
Well, we
We can-
can come out of public hearing, you can make a motion, and then we'll go from there, and then we can revisit it, as long as he's able to operate his business in the meantime.
okay.
All right, we'll close this portion of public hearing on the gun shop. return to regular session.
I'd like to make a motion that we lower the fee down to 500,000 and let him continue on with his business for another 30 days and see if he can't find some kind of insurance. If not, we'll revisit it in 30 days.
Commissioner, by fee, you mean the insurance requirement?
Right.
Mr. Lombre, you heard that motion?
Yes, I did. I think that as long as it doesn't create a problem by closing the public hearing before we make a final determination on this SUP.
The final determination, then it would take place in 30 days, and if need to be, the commission could reopen
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
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 the vote. Commissioners, I'll communicate that information to them.
Okay.
That'd be all I have before you this morning.
All right, thank you, David. Yes, we're ready for,
David, one question before. If you contact this gentleman, could you kind of explain why our hands are kind of tied a little bit so that he doesn't think that, we're just picking on him, but we're trying
And if you
to...
give him a call, if I reach him before you do, we'll just say,
Okay.
we'll explain, I will be calling him and I'll explain it to him.
Okay.
I would just like to be explained why we collect traffic impact fee on a state highway.
I'll defer to others on
All right, you know, KDOT is a separate entity than the county, and everyone's, do we give the money to KDOT, or do we just keep it in our coffers?
I'd say we'd probably keep it in our coffers if we collect the money on the...
Okay.
I doubt if the $88 is going to affect the state one way or the other.
I don't think they care.
Well, I understand, but it's just the idea.
Of course,
I
they
mean,
probably
we don't do any
should
snow
care.
removal, we don't do any maintenance on this highway going to his house, but yet we're collecting a traffic impact fee.
I think the intent of traffic, I'm not saying that I agree with the $88 for this gentleman or not, but the intent of traffic impact fee is traffic in the area, not just on the road in front of the property.
Yeah, 2 or 3 cars a year. That's a pretty good toll. But anyways, that's just my opinion, just thinking out loud. So I guess we're ready for the public hearing on the 2018 budget. So are we ready to go into public hearing on that?
Yes.
All right.
We have prepared the 2018 budget. We had lots of discussion with the commissioners and each one of the departments. We did set the levy the same as last year, 37.608. At this hearing, you may not raise that levy, but you can lower it if that is the decision of the board. So we'll start out with that.
If we should lower it, we cannot return to that level the next year or the year after.
This will be, if you lower it, it will be your base for the 2019 budget.
Right.
And that is one reason why we, in discussion with the board, decided to keep it at the 37.608. Considering that would be our new base for next year, for 19.
Well,
We do have some public here, I think, who would like to speak. You
okay.
may want to open that up.
I will, but when we were putting the budget together, you know, and looking at all the outside agency requests and enhancements, we were able to fund all that with just $0.25 correct?
Yes.
So, you know, last year, the county raised the mill 1/2 of a mill to do the Justice Center roof. And I think a lot of people thought the consensus of the board then was to take that off this year. We do have the tax lid to comply with, I understand that. And we have been underfunding some of the enhancements, I think, in the past years, and we did collect more money this year. We're very fortunate this county's still growing. Talked to a lot of people whose appraisals have naturally went up. I don't believe I've talked to anybody's that's went down. So people are getting a tax increase just by their appraisals. I think the board should at least consider a $0.25 reduction. Now, that's just my opinion, and I understand the tax lid and where we're at next year, but I think this county's growing. It's got a lot of good things, got a lot of positive things going on. I think you're going to see increased revenues.
I think I'd like to just comment about, to make sure that you're absolutely spot on as far as the $0.25 and whatnot, but just so that there's not a misconception that because we can, we're spending it. The $0.25 that we're asking you to retain is to begin establishing a reserve fund for the general fund that we haven't had in the past, so that if in a year that we have a hiccup in the economy or we see a downturn in new construction, we would have money set aside so that we don't have to come back for an increase if we had to. It's not to spend those funds, it's to establish a reserve. We just
Yeah.
want to make sure that we can do that.
And I think Clyde was on the board at the time, and I brought this up a couple of years ago for a reserve fund, and it was voted down, but that was essentially the same thing that we're considering now, is to have a reserve fund, so we don't have to raise the mill levy to do a project. We have money available to us to do those projects, and possibly in 20 or 25 years, maybe we'll have enough in our reserve fund that we have to put a new roof on, either the courthouse or the Justice Center. We'll have the money, we won't have to raise the mill levy. And if we have to raise the mill levy, we would possibly have to go out for a vote. I can't imagine going out for a vote to raise your taxes and have very much luck with that.
Well, hopefully these roofs now are on depreciation schedules where we're putting a little money aside each year. I
Right.
mean, that's just being a good steward. Of course, I probably look at things a little different. I think we're asking people to take money out of their reserve to put in our reserves because we know what to do better with their money. So, but that's my opinion. I'll be quiet now.
Well, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
That's right.
I wouldn't like, go ahead.
Do you want me to open up for any public comment now, or are we ready for that?
Yes, I have several items I want to do, so I'd rather have the public speak.
Okay. Is anyone here wishing to speak on our public hearing portion of the 2018 budget?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Blaine Weeks, 25030 176th Street. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Here today on behalf of the Leavenworth County Port Authority regarding our 2018 budget request. But before I jump into that, I do want to take the opportunity to thank this commission for their support of the economic development in Leavenworth County, most significantly with the $10 million that you allocated for both the Leavenworth and Tonganoxie Industrial Park. That is a huge step, one of which we are already seeing the benefits of that. Our leads and prospects are up, and we're promoting that park, both of those parks, every opportunity we get. So I didn't want to go on without at least mentioning that. So thank you on our behalf. Last week, we learned that our $204,000 budget request had been reduced to about $33,000. $82,000 of that, our original request, is going to be passed directly to Leavenworth County Development Corporation, which in our mind is obviously not a bad thing. It's the intent of that money is going to be the same whether it comes to the Port Authority or whether it goes directly to LCDC. An additional $50,000 is being retained that we had earmarked for our commitment to the CPAC project, which is a 10-year commitment, year 8, which is what we were trying to fund with our 2018 request. That $50,000 was going to be used for that purpose. And then lastly, the $37,817 that would have been left over after our operating expenses was to be put into our job creation and retention fund. So there's a question about reserves, and does the Port Authority desire to have reserves? Absolutely. Do we need them? Absolutely. All of the competing counties that we compete with for these leads and prospects all have solid revenue streams that support their economic development. And quite frankly, the reserves that we have are not nearly enough. There have been many times where we've wanted to offer up some of our reserves, and leave them there, it's not enough, it's not going to make a difference. So yes, our intent is definitely to grow those. The Port Authority, we believe, along with LCDC, we're responsible for economic development in Leavenworth County. And we have the professionals to carry out that mission, and we believe that the funds should be obtained by the Port Authority as well as LCDC in order to carry out that mission. Today, I'm here to ask if you would consider reallocating $87,817 back to the Port Authority to give us a 2018 funding total of about $121,000. Let the money flow to LCDC. We don't have a problem with that. But we would really like to have those funds so that we can build our reserve and continue to promote Leavenworth County. The long-range plan included the desire to have a pretty extensive marketing plan. We've got 2 wonderful business parks. The intent was to, at some point, partner with LCDC and perhaps put together a marketing plan that would promote that. And these are funds that could be used towards that end. And so obviously, if we don't have these, that does limit our ability to support that. It's our understanding that this is kind of a budget neutral. It doesn't really have anything to do with the mill levy because these funds are going to be levied regardless. It's just whether they come to the Port Authority or whether they're retained by the county. And I guess my question would be is if they are in fact retained by the county, I would think it would be wise to designate, what's their intent? Are they just reserves? Do they have a specific purpose? So I just pose those questions to you. I just wanted to make sure that we understand that this is your intent and that's how you plan to go forward. Answer any questions if you have any.
Yeah, I have a question to ask. How much do you have in your reserves now for both the LCDC and the Port Authority?
Ooh, LCDC, I might not be able to do it off the top of my head. I know that our Port Authority budget that we submitted, bottom line, had a little over $502,000 for job creation and retention. And then we had also earmarked or committed $100,000 for our final 2-year commitment on the CPAC, the 10-year deal. And even though those funds were committed, our intent was to request those every year in our operating budget in order to fund that commitment. We just felt like it was a wise thing to do to state that on those documents. LCDC reserve is probably
200,000.
400,000, 200,000? Okay.
200, 300,000. So you're saying that 700,000 to 800,000 is not enough to have in reserve, but this 87,000 is going to make a difference for you?
It might not make a difference this year, but over a period of time, over 3 to 5, just like you're trying to build your reserve fund, I think eventually, I don't know what the dollar amount would be, Commissioner Holland. $1 million would be a nice little nest egg to have. So that if we're,
we'd like that too.
So that if we're faced with a situation where someone comes with 500, 600, or 1,000 jobs, we can further incent that company along with whatever incentives the county would put on the table.
Well, I want to ask a question of you, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I had a talk yesterday with Mayor Brewer of Baser, and he said he came up to a Port Authority meeting. Mr. Steve Jack was not at the meeting. He was on vacation, I think. And he asked a question of what the Port Authority could help him with on a grocery store that was coming to his area potentially, and if you could give him any help. And you said that you would have Steve get back with him. So I called him yesterday and asked him if you had gotten back with him or Steve had gotten back with him, and he referenced, no, they have not got back with me in over 9 weeks. And I said, are they interested in doing this? He said, I don't know, I haven't gotten any response from them. So are you picking and choosing who you help or don't help? I think this is a big thing for the southern part of the county to get a grocery store down there in Baser. I think the sales tax will generate a lot. I think they're down to 75 building lots down there. They need help to get a road built so they can get more building lots. And this is something that the county can do if we have a reserve fund. And if the Port Authority don't wish to help on this project, then I see that the county can help with this project.
And that's a fair question, Mayor Brewer. Was at our, not the most recent meeting, but at the meeting prior to that.
Right.
And he did discuss the grocery store. And my comments that day really surrounded around our own struggle with where do we draw that line? We've oftentimes, in my experience with LCDC, tried to stay out of the retail part of things, because what we're really about is kind of the industrial, the manufacturing type job. But I think things are changing. And we were not really prepared that day to make a commitment, because I think
Well, Steve was gone, and I understand that.
Right.
But I think a phone call would be deserving of that. One other question, you say you're not particularly interested in small business or retail business. And what I ask you is if you're more interested in industrial parks, I don't believe that the Port Authority gave any money to either park. It was both the city of Leavenworth and the county that gave to the Leavenworth Park, and it was the county that gave to the Tonganoxie Park. Is that correct?
Well, we certainly didn't give any money, although we have fronted some engineering fees because of the gap between the issues that we had with the Attorney General and the whole
Right.
funding request.
Right.
But I will tell you that there's a lot of Port Authority members that spent several hours working on those projects with regard to the development agreements and the funding. So on one hand, no, we probably didn't give any funding, although technically we did, but we certainly did put forth some effort. It's unfortunate that it didn't work out the way those agreements were structured, and had to go a different direction, but ultimately the parks are.
It was the Attorney General's
Correct.
ruling, and that's why we had to back out of that original agreement.
Yeah. Commissioner Holland, I don't want to portray the concept that the Port Authority does not want to help small business or retail. I will tell you that in the weeks since the discussion with Mayor Brewer in his presentation, although he didn't specifically ask for anything, I don't believe that day, he was simply just kind of updating us on where he was at. So he hasn't really officially asked us for anything. But we have already had internal discussion. We need to further develop or redefine our mission statement. And I will tell you that personally, I'm not opposed to supporting the grocery store. It's a little different than what we've done in the past. Yes, it's going to generate some sales tax revenue, but there's also a grocery store 20 minutes down the road. So is it going to basically divert sales tax to that store? Potentially, but I don't disagree that Basel needs a grocery store. So that's my personal opinion. I can't speak for the other board members.
How much money would it cost to do a aggressive marketing campaign to market our industrial parks in this county for what we have to offer?
I'm just going to guess $300,000 to $500,000, and that might not be enough. It depends on whether you want TV ads, billboards, radio, whatever kind of marketing material. But I think to at least get started, you're going to have to engage a firm for at least $100,000 to $150,000 just to put the plan together.
Are we talking about a plan like that? I mean,
We had initial discussions when we were first talking about the development of the industrial parks, thinking that we needed to get ahead of this so that when the parks are completed, we are ready. And I will tell you that no, we're behind. And that's a partnership with LCDC. So they would really kind of take the lead on that. We would hopefully provide some funding for them to execute that.
Well, personally, I think that's something we need to do. I mean, like I said, you have Dan Lynch Real Estate was pretty aggressive on advertising, and it looks like it paid off in Tonganoxie real well. So that's just the home builder, realtor, developer.
Yeah. And we've got two really great properties to market as well. Those parks are going to be fantastic for our community in the long run.
Any thoughts, Commissioner?
Well, I'm going to say something, and it's not going to be popular.
Oh, you always do that.
I'm the only one up here that was here when CPAC was originally proposed, voted on.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think I might have been.
I don't think you were. I think you came a couple
Anyway,
of years
don't make any
after.
difference.
At the time that CPAC came about, Commissioner Tellefson had really worked on that, pushed it, got it going. I remember at the time that, and I'll call it a commitment, we said that we would fund some budget annually. And I was very disappointed to see that we didn't do that this year, and because I feel it was a commitment made by a prior commission. But that's just my thought, my recollection of what occurred, and so I wanted to say that. I mean, we're back 8 years at least, maybe longer than that, because I know that Tellefson worked on that a long time to arrange the release of the building, the remodeling, and it created well over 400 jobs. Now, not all of them live in Leavenworth, I know that, but still, they are jobs in our county.
They probably spend some money when they go to work and
Yes.
leave work in Leavenworth. I wasn't around then. I mean, I
know.
I was in second grade when the Port Authority was formed, so,
Rub it in.
yeah.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to say, in a way, I feel we're not honoring a commitment that was made. In a way we are, but in a way we are not.
Mhm.
Well, I think I would disagree with that, because I think we are, because of the amount of money that they have in reserves, that they could easily fund $50,000.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah. And,
Had to get that off my,
Well, I look at it as the Port Authority and the LCDC is basically an economic development department of the county, I would say. We don't have our own economic development department. I think, they should be treated as a department
right, I agree.
and funded. And I
think we want to be sure that we are funding them. I mean, I don't want to, that we are funding them. We are funding 100% of their operations. There's, what's not being funded is the amount that was going to go back into their reserves.
Right.
So
That's
just-
why I
just wanna be
understood it.
sure that we understand.
Well, they came in with, what, a $900 enhancement, or
No.
over last year?
Oh, over
Over
last
last
year.
year.
Over last year, yeah.
It was just increased $900, which was very minimal. So, did Commissioner Graber, maybe Commissioner Holland, how did we used to fund them? Did we used to fund them a portion of a mill?
it was,
No, I don't think we did that.
they submitted their budget.
It's always been that way. It's
Yeah.
never been like a portion of a
But we
mill.
always knew that in that budget, there was $50,000 that we basically were delivering to them to fund CPAC.
Okay.
That's all.
So you're saying the previous commission had promised $50,000 per year?
That's the way I've always looked at
So
it.
really, the county was promising to fund $100,000 per year for the CPAC jobs.
Right. Which I thought was kind of odd, but anyway.
I've said what I want to say.
Okay.
Okay. And we can't make any decision on this till after we leave the public hearing portion, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the 2018 proposed budget in this hearing?
Does Mr. New have anything to say?
I do. I mean, I've
All
got
right.
several issues.
Commissioner?
I was gone when you finished up the budget, and I'm sure you all got a letter from the Carroll Mansion, and I understand that you did not fund them anything. That they were asking, I thought, was a minimal amount for what they had responded to, and and I'd like to read a little passage. I'm sure you all three got this letter. To my knowledge, the Leavenworth County Historical Society was the only nonprofit for the county to take the time to thoughtfully petition the commission for needs we deem to be priority for our organization. At this time, as previously stated, we have only asked for what we feel is absolute necessary in our order to continue the service we offer. And I find that kind of disturbing that we did go ahead and fund $50,000, but it's for those that come forward first and ask for whatever. They do the work, but they don't get to pay. I don't think that is, as you said before on issues, it's a sewer District 3. I don't think it's fair. And they understand that this is just for this year. It's not ongoing. And so I think we should, you know, if nothing else, we should have funded them partial at nothing else. And I think this is something that we need to relook at. And I would hope that you would reconsider on this expulsion of not giving them anything.
Well, I think our discussion was, there's a lot of historical societies in the county. I mean, Baser has one, Tongi has one,
Right.
Linwood, East, I don't know if Easton has
No.
one. But, I mean, they all have requests, I'm sure.
Well,
If they knew there was a pot of money available that they could come in and apply for, say they had just say their building needed some repair or something. I think that's what we need. We don't need to be funding an employee's salary, because that's kind of what that request was
well,
a
it
salary.
is for, and they understand that it's only for this year.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with them in the last few weeks, and I think that's what prompted this letter is that they went to the trouble to present this to the board. No one else in the county did. And I'm sure every historical society in the county know that it's budget time. I mean, somehow, social media, newspaper, whatever, they know it's budget time. And if they say they didn't, they must be keeping their head in the sand, because, or they actually don't need it. So I'm just
Well, I
asking
think
for.
every one of them has a need. I mean,
Well,
they're nonprofits or.
Yeah, they're nonprofits, and I just ask for your reconsideration.
Janet, haven't we responded to them previously on some of the emergency situations that they've had?
We have.
The board in the past has certainly contributed to the museums, different ones, for special projects that they've had, for instance, a roof or...
And that's what I feel this money's for. I don't feel like it's for hiring an employee and, I feel it's for a catastrophic event, I guess.
Well,
I guess, can I put Mr. Kramer on the spot here? I hate to do that to you, but what does the city do when it comes to that type of request? I guess I could have put the mayor on the spot. I guess we can do that next.
We have established a transient guest tax fund where organizations like the Carroll Mansion can apply. We allocate $20,000 a year to $10,000 rounds that they can come in. They have to fill out an application. We just started it. I think we're in our second or third round because of the new hotel in the Grove. I think we have plans to expand that amount, but we set an amount. We have an application process. It's a pretty extensive packet on what we do and don't fund, and then we award it based on what comes in. So that's what we do right now for those kind of organizations.
well, while you're here, don't run off. I've got more questions for you. I guess they have a bed tax that they can do this with.
Mhm.
We don't. And I think that this should still be referenced to them because they did the work to do it, and yet we just dismissed them. And we're putting up $50,000 where the city is putting $10,000.
The
Which,
city also funds Main Street of over $30,000. And we also fund organizations like CASA, KVC, those kind of through our grant.
I did read an article in the paper. It was a letter to the editor. It was very good. And I won't reference the lady's name, but she did a very good job. And she said that you don't fund the Alliance Against Family Violence.
We do fund the
You-
Alliance
you
Against
do.
Family Violence. I think the last year, the total from the city was a little over $8,000. They came in and requested a supplemental amount because they were unsuccessful in a grant to the state that had nothing to do with us, and they came and asked for some gap funding on that. But we do provide a little over $8,000 to that organization.
Well, I noticed that we cut Alliance Against Family Violence. And they're building a new homeless shelter. I think the city has a problem with homeless. I really do. And I think it's going to grow, and I think it's going to get worse.
And the city
So-
gave the land for that shelter. That was city property that the commission gave for, I think, $100 or less for that operation.
Yeah. But yet you cut the budget for Alliance Against Family Violence. And
I believe they had a pretty strong request.
right, they did.
Doubled one year, and then we're doing, we can't keep doubling it. And like I said, our discussion was about cities' participation in it.
Right.
Other cities, not Leavenworth, just other cities in the county.
Well, I think that the city of
And I
Leavenworth.
don't know if they go and request, I believe Mark did emailed everybody and came back with, they hadn't requested from other cities,
Just from Leavenworth, I
just from
believe.
Leavenworth. So,
And if I could, on this money for the Historical Society, it wasn't cut. What was determined was we would budget it, and similar to what Mr. Kramer is saying the city does, that we would have an application process, so we would open it up, allow people to apply, so they can still get funding from that. It's just not a guarantee that it's all going to them. So there will be a process so that they can come in and get some of that funding. And maybe if nobody else applies, they would have the potential.
they'd have the whole
to-
thing,
But that would be
And they've already done the work and given it to us as a commission, and we didn't fund them. I mean, you can spin it however you want, but it's just, we didn't fund them. And they're the only ones that applied. Just don't think that's quite right.
It's a decision of the board.
Yeah,
Bob's right, there's nothing,
Right.
nothing I can do.
Yeah.
It's your decision.
would like to spread it out over the county, like I said. I mean, like to hear from these other agencies, and I'm sure we will if they know there's a fund available that they can apply for. I'm sure they all need building maintenance and whatnot. But I mean, I just hate committing to funded salary for a position. That's my thought. I mean, I don't know if Commissioner Graber has any thoughts.
Well, I guess I'm looking at, we've set aside $50,000. That is not a great deal, nor is it going to solve the problem of the
well,
Leavenworth
it
County.
would solve the problem for Carroll Mansion for this year, but it will not. And my thought on that is, if other historical societies come forward, say in the middle of winter, it's just a fact of life. If you don't get out and ask ahead of time, it
That's right.
may not happen. And I don't mean to be crass or unsympathetic, but, you know, that's just the way of life. Anyway, I just asked for the,
We kind of have an example in that recently a DECA group came in and asked for funding for their trip.
right, well
And we
then,
provided it, and a couple of weeks later, another DECA,
Yeah.
because they found out that the money was available.
Right.
But none of those groups came in and asked as part of the budget for us to budget for that next year.
right,
But I'm pretty sure they're gonna show back up next year and ask for that funding again, because, you know, it's, when I give my dog a treat, he knows what cabinet that treat came out of. He's gonna go sit in front of that cabinet every year or every
so
day until I give him
maybe
the
we
treat.
need to set a new precedence and not do that.
Saying that it may just simply be because they didn't realize they could even ask, that the other
Right.
historical societies didn't.
On this next issue I have, I'd like to ask for an executive session for non-elected personnel.
Okay. Can we do that after this, at the end of this? Or does this have something to do with the budget?
No, it has something to do with the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd have to be at the end of the public hearing.
We'd have to close the public hearing, and then we'd have to reopen it, because you can't do it in real.
Okay.
Is something that can wait then?
Yes,
Okay.
as long as we don't vote on the budget, I mean.
Okay. Anything else on the public hearing portion? Any other? Yes, sir, Mr. New?
Bill New, 18657 Jameson Road, Leavenworth. I have several issues that I would like to comment on. And the first of those is that I am a member of the Port Authority Board. I'm speaking as an individual today and from past history. I know you gentlemen have the most difficult job in the world trying to fit us into a budget. And we were always part of the budget until maybe 3 years ago, something like that. And all of a sudden we found ourselves as an enhancement. And so every year we come up at this point in time and plead our case, which I think is a strong case because every dollar that we spend is itemized, it's public, and it goes back into economic development in Leavenworth County, which is an investment because it pays dividends for years and years to come. And at one time, we had a rather significant budget, somewhere around $400,000 a year, and we were out building spec buildings and doing some things like that. And like Commissioner Graver indicated, it was my understanding that the $50,000 would be funded by the county in addition to budgeting opportunities there. But we managed to survive. And during that period of time, LCDC's budget was cut significantly. And in order for them to sustain professional staff and for us to have staff available, because we don't even have a telephone line, we don't own a computer, we don't own a typewriter, and we own no telephones, we have leaned upon LCDC to do that. And so we instigated to keep them with professional staff a portion of our budget. And that's how we arrived at that sum that we pay them today. And so we feel like it does provide us a place, an opportunity for a place to meet with staff that's available to us to help us. And with the load that we've been carrying, we couldn't have done it without LCDC's help. So there is a partnership there. And I just thought it was important to make those points. So when those funds, if they're transferred directly to LCDC, they still have the funds, and that's fine. And I'm sure LCDC will continue to work with the Port Authority. But I just thought it was important that you understand what had transpired in the past. And our last major expenditure was to help bring the armory to Tonganoxie, Kansas, and that was several $100,000. We had those funds in reserve. And we tried to build up those funds so we could retain and encourage businesses in Leavenworth County. And one of the last offers that we made was several $100,000 for maintaining a couple hundred businesses in Leavenworth. And we were not successful in that, but we had the funds available to make that offer. And we do from time to time incent businesses. And I'm so appreciative of you commissioners, the hard work that you do, and your support of LCDC and the Port Authority. And I assure you that we're an arm of you folks. We want to do what you folks want us to do. And so we'll continue in that manner, irregardless of what you decide today. But thank you for your past support and future.
Couple questions.
Sure.
You kind of helped make my case on the Carroll Mansion when you say you you give money to the staff of LCDC, and that's exactly what this is, staff for the Carroll Mansion. Another question I'd like to ask you is that, let's see, by getting the money for CPAC, do you not think that having between $700,000 and $800,000, that $50,000 would make that big an impact on you as a Port Authority member?
Here again, speaking personally, not on behalf of
Yeah.
the Port Authority, $50,000 is probably immaterial.
Right.
But over the 7 years that we paid it down, that's $350,000 that we could have done some other significant things with.
But we're only talking, what, 2 more years and then it'll be paid
That's
off?
correct.
So you think that'll impact you the next 2 years?
$50,000, not significantly.
Right. That's what I,
It was, a couple $100,000, we could go
Yeah.
out and do some things that we
right,
wanted.
I agree. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mhm.
Thank you. Anyone else on the public hearing on the 2018 budget? And I guess we're ready to close that. And Commissioner Hall would like an executive session to discuss non-elected personnel?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how you want to phrase that, but that's what it's for.
Well, if,
Does it affect the budget, what you want to do in this?
It does affect the budget.
so appropriate motion to be, to go in executive session at 10 o'clock to discuss non-elected personnel for a matter of 10 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be good.
You should say the justification, which would be, in order to protect the privacy interests of the individual involved, move to go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel for a period of time, and to reconvene in open session in this office at specified time.
Who would be present at that?
I would say the 3 commissioners and Mark Lawfrey.
If it's got something to do with budget, should we have the clerk?
Should Janet not be there?
I don't really see it be necessary that Janet's there.
Okay.
I think Mark would be
Okay.
able to answer the questions, I think. Nothing against you, Janet, or anything.
I understand.
Yeah. It's
No
just,
offense taken.
yeah.
Okay. So the correct motion would be to move to go into executive session to,
Again, Commissioners, the 3-part rule, break in the justification, and that would be in order to protect the privacy interests of the individual to be discussed, justification. That you go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel, portion of the act in which you're allowed to do so. That you specify the time that you would resume open session in this office, and you may, and it's probably advisable, state who will be present during the session.
okay. And I'll move to go into executive session, discuss non-elected personnel to protect the privacy of the individual at 10 o'clock, and return to this regular session at 10:10, and those present would be 3 commissioners and Mr. Lawfrey.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
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 Let the record show that we're returning to regular session from executive session, and no decisions were made. The subject topic was, we stayed on task on the topic that we went in for, non-elected personnel, and no decisions were made. All right.
Mark, is that covered, you think?
Okay. Do we need to do anything on the budget at this time?
Well, we'll have to vote on it. Okay.
So the discussion with the Historical Society or with the LCDC, I'd just say that the funding is in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
How you allocate that funds is what is that question. So approving the budget still allows you to have and continue that conversation up until January 1. I would recommend approval of the budget as presented. I think it was a good budget. I think the process was an excellent process. I think we have presented with a flat mill levy, which is important. Reducing the mill levy, as we've discussed, puts us at a disadvantage going forward because that becomes our new baseline. And this will allow us to start to build a reserve fund that I really think the county should have to be financially responsible. How you fund, again, either the Historical Society or the Port Authority, you can continue to have those discussions, and until January 1, we have the opportunity to address that. Approving this
Even though we
budget.
approved today's budget and the amount, we
Yes.
could continue looking at Port Authority.
Yes. This budget, the budget establishes the total expenditures.
Yes.
It does not establish exactly how those expenditures have to be held. At the state level, they don't care as long as we stay within what we said we were going to spend. So we can still have that discussion. We don't have to iron that out today if you're not ready to. But the budget does have to be approved, and I would appreciate it if the board would approve it as presented.
I move approval of the budget as presented by the county clerk.
Mr. Dyslak, second. So you're saying on the Port Authority and LCDC, we don't have to decide today whether their money goes into the county coffers or it goes into theirs, as long as we approve the budget.
I think it was pointed out during the public discussion, actually, that the funds are there. It doesn't change the budget on how we allocate those funds. The funds are there. We budgeted for the amount that was in their request. So the funds are there. If the board decides they want to distribute those funds differently than what has been proposed so far, you certainly can. And it's not, in fact, until we write the check, that's not determined. So you can, until January 1, you have the ability to discuss that.
Under economic development, we have a mill levy of .405, which will have budget authority of $287,333, which is the exact request by the Port Authority. So as Mark indicated, that is being levied, those taxes will be collected under economic development.
Okay. Any thoughts, commissioners, on that?
So we can review that down the line and decide how to appropriate the funds?
Absolutely.
I'll again move to approve the budget.
The same with the Historical Society. We can look later on. That discussion does not have to end today. There is funding available. if, through some of the reserves, if that decision is also made on, that does not have to end today.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the budget with lowering it 1/4 of a mil.
You can do that today. Your restrictions today is the budget cannot be raised, but the budget can be lowered. That money would not be taken from the reserves that we talked about previously. It would not hurt an individual department's budget.
Looks like my motion died with lack of second. Any other motions?
I will reiterate my motion. I move approval of the budget as presented by the county clerk.
I'll second it. Voting?
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
We will have to,
We do need to approve some form of a budget. And so if there's an issue that can be addressed, we need to address it, but we do need to approve some form of a budget. Otherwise, we will continue to operate on the current budget.
I can say that $1/4 of a mil would be a cut of about $150,000, which we looked at that. But that's the dollar. I just thought I should mention that that would be, the dollar amount that we are
Okay.
talking about.
Is there any projection as to what the amount would be next year by that lowering?
No, we don't know what our valuation is going to do. This year, we did have an increase in valuation, which did give us the capability to have some reserve funds. We have no idea. Is there any reason to think that we're going to have a decrease in valuation? Not necessarily.
Well, we have to move something forward. I will second the chairman's motion.
I don't think there's a motion right now.
I think it died of a lack of a second.
Well, you'll just have to make that motion again.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we approve the budget with lowering the mill levy 1/4.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Right, so that is the county budget. We have another budget to pass. We have our Leavenworth County Special Other Funds, which would be the local service road and bridge along with our sewer districts. We did keep that a flat levy. That levy entirely goes to local service road and bridge because we do not levy for any of the sewer districts. So that would be a levy of 8.462, very same as last year. So we do need another motion then to pass the Leavenworth County Special Other Funds budget.
So moved.
Second. Voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
We'll need some signatures on these. It doesn't have to happen now. I will.
You have
make
to
them
revise
available-
it.
Make them available to the board.
Yeah.
And we will make the adjustment for the $1/4 of a mil.
Okay. Anyone else have anything on the budget while we're here? And in the future, we'll be discussing how we allocate these funds and where we put them. So
Certainly.
it doesn't have to be decided today, but. Anything else, commissioners? Then
Do you have any executive
we have another executive session. Move that to preserve the attorney-client privilege, that the board go into executive session to discuss pending litigation. Present would be the 3 commissioners, counsel Roger Mars, and outside counsel Scott Ryberg. Need about 30 minutes.
Second.
Do we need 30 minutes?
Yes. I'm sure you will.
I just remembered about 15, maybe 30.
Or 20? We'll go into executive session at 10:25 and return at 10:45 to this room.
Are we not going to hold it here to accommodate Mr. Ryburn?
It's fine. Yes, we could hold it here. Yes. Thank you.
We need a second and we need to vote.
Yeah. I got a motion.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Board's returned to regular session. Coming from executive session, no decisions were made. Discussion was limited to attorney-client privilege. I guess that's all we need on that motion, correct? No decisions were made, no direction given. All right, we're in regular session. As the commissioners had a chance to review the bill from Anderson Bird,
I did. Yes. I move approval.
second. Voting.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay. We have any other business this time? Mark?
No other business from us.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. Voting?
Aye.
Aye.